Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in your life when you feel like heaven is silent, when your prayers echo back like whispers in the wind. You've cried, pleaded, even begged, and still nothing changes. But what if I told you that it's not about how much you say, but what you say? Yes, there are words that shift the atmosphere, words that pull back the veil between the natural and the supernatural, words that God has been patiently waiting to hear from your lips, not because he needs them, but because you do. This is not just a message, it is a divine moment. And by the end of this message, you will know exactly what to say to invite the power of God into your situation. So stay with me. Because your breakthrough is waiting on the other side of this revelation. You see, God is not waiting on your performance. He's not impressed by the eloquence of your speech, nor moved by religious phrases recited without heart. He is waiting for truthful words, for the moment your heart cracks open and spills out the one thing he longs for most. I surrender. These are the words that cause angels to move. These are the words that cause chains to break. These are the words that invite heaven into your chaos. When you say, I surrender, you are saying, I give up control. I trust you completely. That's when God begins to do what only he can do. Not when you try to fix it yourself. Not when you bargain, but when you let go. He's waiting for you to say, I can't do this without you. I trust you, even when I don't understand. Your will, not mine. Take over. I belong to you. God isn't slow to answer. You're just holding on too tightly. He's not ignoring your pain. He's waiting for the door of your heart to open through your own voice. When you finally say the words that surrender your will to his, that's when his power flows. That's when the healing starts. That's when the impossible bends to the hand of the Almighty. There is a common belief that God is distant, hidden somewhere in the heavens, unreachable and uninterested in the everyday struggles of our lives. We've been taught to chase after him, to run ourselves tired, trying to earn his attention, to speak louder, pray harder, do more. And yet in all that noise and all that doing, we miss a simple but powerful truth. God is not far. He never was. He's not hiding. He's not reluctant. He's not waiting on a ritual. He's waiting on something far more personal, far more powerful. Your invitation. You don't have to climb a mountain or fast for 40 days to reach him. You don't need to impress him with theological depth or religious routines. His presence doesn't dwell in some unreachable place, behind a curtain of perfection. He is close, closer than your next breath, closer than the thoughts in your mind. But he waits. Why? Because love does not invade. Love waits to be welcome. He waits because he gave you a gift so sacred, so divine, that even he will not violate it, the power of choice. He waits because your heart is a door, not a prison, and it only opens from the inside. He longs to heal, to comfort, to restore, but he will not push past your voice, for your choice, for your invitation. And this invitation is not complicated. It doesn't require perfect words, it just requires real ones. It can sound like, God, I don't know what to do anymore. God, I need you. Help me, heal me, come in. That's the moment things begin to change. God is not far, but he will never force himself into your life. His power is available, but it flows where it's welcomed. His peace is waiting, but it rests where it's received. He knocks, but he does not break down the door. He stands at the edge of your chaos, of your confusion, of your deepest pain, just waiting to be invited in. Too often we think God needs our situation to be cleaned up before he comes close. We think he's offended by our mess, disappointed by our flaws, repelled by our doubts. But that's not who he is. He's not waiting for you to get it all together. He's waiting for you to stop pretending you can. He's waiting for you to drop the mask and open the door. Because when you invite him, he doesn't just enter, he transforms. The invitation isn't for God's benefit, it's for yours. It is in the moment of invitation that your heart aligns with heaven. You become aware of a presence that was always there, but never forced itself upon you. And that moment, when you say, come in, it shifts everything. The burden you carried starts to lift. The confusion begins to clear. The silence starts to break. Many are waiting on a sign from God, but God is waiting on a sentence from you. Not a perfect prayer, just a willing heart. Because invitation is the language of surrender. It says, I can't, but you can. It says, I've tried and I've failed, and I'm done pretending. It says, I need you. God doesn't need you to beg. He just needs you to believe, to trust that he is near, that he hears, that he is still the same God who parted seas, healed the sick, lifted the broken, and raised the dead. And he's not distant. He's not silent. He's not ignoring you. He's just waiting for your invitation. If you feel like God is far away, perhaps it's because you've never truly let him in. Maybe you've been talking about him, learning about him, even praying at him, but not with him. Maybe you've been performing instead of inviting, hiding instead of opening, hoping for a miracle without asking for his presence. But the moment you open your heart, even trembling, even broken, and say, God, I invite you into this, the atmosphere begins to shift. That is the power of invitation. It's not about changing God's position. It's about changing your posture, about opening the door of your life and allowing the one who created you to enter and do what only he can. And when he comes in, he doesn't just observe, he restores. He doesn't judge, he redeems. He doesn't condemn, he covers. But it all starts with an invitation. That whisper in the dark, that cry in the silence, that simple act of faith that says, come in, Lord, I need you. He's not waiting for you to perform. He's not waiting for you to fix everything. He's not waiting for the right time or the perfect prayer. He's just waiting for your invitation. And the moment you give it, you realize something beautiful. He was never far at all. There are moments in life when we reach the edge of our own strength. Times when it feels like no matter how hard we try, how loudly we pray, or how long we wait, nothing shifts. The heavens feel closed, the silence becomes heavy, and doubt begins to whisper, maybe you're not meant to be heard. What if the delay isn't because God hasn't heard you? What if the delay is because the words you're speaking are not the ones he's waiting for? There is something sacred, something deeply powerful about the words that leave your mouth. Words are not just sounds, they are spiritual keys. They open doors. They create alignment. They have the power to either bind or release, build or break, invite or repel. And when spoken with faith and surrender, the right words can unlock the very hand of God in your life. You were created in the image of a God who spoke the universe into existence. Light came because he said, let there be light. Creation answered to his voice. That same principle was placed in you, not to create galaxies, but to shape the environment around you. Your emotions, your mindset, your circumstances. What you speak matters more than you realize. But these are not just words of wishful thinking or positive affirmations spoken out of habit. They are the words that align your heart with heaven. They are words that release your grip on fear and open you to the reality of faith. Words like, God, I trust you. I believe you are able. Let your will be done, not mine. These are the kind of words that pierce through the veil between the natural and the supernatural. They carry weight in the spirit realm. God is moved not by noise, but by faith-filled words that come from a surrendered heart. The volume of your voice doesn't matter. It's the posture of your spirit. You can whisper the right words in tears, and heaven will respond faster than if you shouted 1,000 empty ones. There's a moment when your heart begins to catch up with your lips. That's when your words change. That's when you stop begging and start believing. You stop reciting out of fear and start declaring from trust. That's when this shift begins. Because God responds to faith, and faith has a sound. He's not waiting for poetry. He's not waiting for perfection. He's not even waiting for you to figure everything out. He's waiting for the words that release his hand to move in your situation. Words that say, take over. Words that say, I surrender this to you. Words that don't try to manipulate the outcome, but instead release, control. That is where the power lies. Have you ever wondered why Jesus often asked people, what do you want me to do for you? He knew their need, but he invited them to speak, not because he didn't know, but because something happens when we voice our belief, when we declare our trust, when we name our desire and faith. That moment of speech becomes a spiritual agreement, a joining of heaven and earth. God doesn't need information. He desires invitation. Think about it. Words of bitterness close doors. Words of unbelief shut heaven's flow. But words of humility, gratitude, trust, and surrender open windows that no man can shut. When you speak what is true, when you speak what is aligned with who God is and what he has promised, you come into agreement with his will. And where there is agreement, there is power. Even when you're broken, the right words can open the way. When you say, God, I don't understand, but I choose to trust you. That's a key. When you say, even if you don't do it my way, I still believe you are good. That's a key. When you stop saying, why me, and start saying, use me, heaven leans in closer. Divine intervention is not a performance to be earned. It's a door waiting to be opened by the language of faith. There is something about those moments, raw, unrehearsed, unfiltered, when the heart finally says the one thing that matters. God, I need you. Those 5 words have unlocked miracles. And yet, it's not the phrase itself, but the posture behind it. Words that come from trust are different from words that come from fear. They carry peace. They carry weight. They carry an invitation for heaven to move in ways far beyond what you could imagine. So if you've been praying but see no answer, if you've been trying but seeing no shift, pause and ask yourself, what have I been saying? Are my words rooted in fear, control, and doubt? Or are they soaked in faith, trust, and surrender? Because when you finally say the words that match what God has been waiting to hear, something breaks. Not because your voice is powerful on its own, but because the God who created you responds to hearts that believe. And your words, when they carry faith, they do more than echo in the room. They move heaven. God is listening. He's not waiting on you to beg. He's waiting for your faith to speak. There is something extraordinary that happens when the soul finally lets go, not out of defeat, but out of complete trust. Surrender is not the language of weakness. It is the language of the powerful. It is not giving up. It is handing over. And when you do that, when you surrender not just in words, but in the very posture of your heart, heaven responds. You see, we are trained to fight. We are taught to push harder, pray louder, work longer, and control more. We cling to outcomes, timelines, and expectations as though our grip will force things into alignment. But often, the very thing we're holding on to is the reason our hands aren't open enough to receive the miracle. God never asked for your perfection. He asked for your heart. A surrendered heart. A heart that says, even if I don't understand, I still trust you. That is the heart heaven responds to. True surrender is not polished, it's not rehearsed. It often comes in the quietest moments, when you're alone, exhausted from trying, broken by disappointment, and all you can whisper is, God, I can't carry this anymore. And in that whisper, a spiritual transaction begins. Because while man looks at strength, heaven responds to surrender. Heaven doesn't respond to pride or performance. It moves when the soul finally bows and says, not my will, but yours be done. There's a reason why breakthrough often comes after a breaking. It's not because God wants you to suffer. It's because only in the breaking do we truly lay everything down. We come to the end of ourselves. We stop performing. We stop pretending. We stop controlling. And in that place of total surrender, the atmosphere shifts. Because surrender is not about letting everything fall apart. It's about letting God hold it all together. Surrender says, I trust you more than I trust what I see. It says, I'm not in charge anymore, and that's okay. And when those words come from your soul, not just your lips, they become a divine signal. A cry that pierces through every barrier. That is when heaven leans in, because the presence of God is not drawn to our power. It is drawn to our yielding. Surrender is not a one-time event. It is a continual moment-by-moment choice to lay it down again. Your worries, your fears, your plans, your pain, not to be forgotten, but to be redeemed. God doesn't ask you to surrender so he can take something from you. He asks so he can give you something greater. His peace, his wisdom, his timing, his perfect plan. But we often struggle with surrender because we've been hurt. We've trusted before and been disappointed. We've let go before and felt empty. But surrendering to God is not like surrendering to people. People may fail you, but God never will. He sees the end from the beginning. He knows what you're not yet able to see. And when you surrender to him, you're not falling into a void. You're falling into his hands, his strong, steady, unshakable hands. Think of every miracle recorded through history. It didn't begin with striving. It began with surrender. A woman reaching for the hem of his garment. A widow offering her last meal. A man lowering his pride to dip in a river. These weren't acts of strength. They were acts of surrender. And in each one, heaven responded. Healing flowed, provision came, restoration arrived. Not because they had it all figured out, but because they were willing to let go. Surrender creates space for God to be God. It removes your hand from the steering wheel and allows him to guide you with wisdom you don't yet have and grace you can't yet see. When you surrender, you give up the illusion of control and trade it for the reality of divine intervention. But surrender isn't passive. It's not an excuse to do nothing. It's active trust. It's saying, I'll still show up. I'll still be faithful, but I no longer carry the burden of outcome. That's where the peace comes from, not from knowing what's next, but from knowing who's in charge of what's next. And when your soul enters that place, when your heart whispers, God, I give it all to you, every fear, every doubt, every unanswered question, that's when heaven moves. That's when doors open that no one can shut. That's when healing flows through places you thought were beyond repair. That's when you realize that surrender is not the end, it's the beginning of something sacred. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to hold it all together. You don't have to keep performing. You just have to come to him honestly, wholly, humbly. Heaven is not looking for the strong. Heaven is looking for the surrendered. And the moment you truly surrender, you'll feel it. Something will shift in your spirit. Not because the circumstances changed, but because you changed. And that's when heaven responds. There is a mystery in the human tongue that few dare to explore, but those who do, those who speak from the depth of their spirit, often witness the miraculous. It's not just about communication. It's about creation. There is divine power in your words. The breath that forms your speech was given by the one who breathed life into man. And from the very beginning of time, creation itself began with a voice. Let there be. And there was. You were made in that same image, fashioned by the same hands, animated by the same breath. This means your words are not insignificant. They carry weight in the unseen realm. They are seeds sown into your atmosphere. Every time you speak, you are either planting faith or fear, life or death, healing or harm. It may feel like just a whisper, but in the spiritual realm it echoes. How often do we speak words we don't even think twice about? Words of doubt, self-criticism, frustration. And yet we wonder why the atmosphere around us feels heavy, why our lives seem stuck, why peace feels so far away. The truth is, your words shape your world. If you keep saying nothing ever works out for me, don't be surprised when doors stay closed. If you keep saying I'm always tired, always unlucky, always anxious, then you're reinforcing the very chains you want broken. But it doesn't have to be this way. There's another path, a higher frequency, a holy rhythm. The moment you realize the divine authority behind your words, you begin to speak with intention. You begin to speak life. You say, I am healed, even when your body aches. You declare, God is making a way, even when the path looks blocked. You whisper, peace is mine, even when chaos surrounds you. This isn't denial. This is faith in action. The most powerful shift you can make in your spiritual journey is not in your surroundings, but in your speech. When you align your words with truth, heaven listens, and not just listens, heaven moves. Because your words are not just sounds, they are. There is a moment when heaven stands still, when the angels lean in, not because you shouted, but because you spoke with bold belief, not rehearsed, not forced, but from the heart. There's divine power in saying, I surrender, and meaning it. There's power in crying out, I trust you, when everything inside you wants to run. There's unmatched strength in simply saying, yes, Lord, without needing all the answers. Words backed by faith move mountains. Words drenched in belief part seas. Words spoken in alignment with divine truth activate the realm of miracles. The enemy doesn't fear your silence, he fears your declaration. Because he knows once you start speaking life, everything begins to shift. Darkness flees where light is declared. Confusion disappears where clarity is spoken. Fear weakens when love is proclaimed. So what are you saying today? What are you planting with your tongue? Every word carries potential. Every sentence shapes a future. And if you knew just how much heaven listens to your voice, you'd never speak carelessly again. You were never meant to curse yourself with your mouth. You were designed to bless, to build, to proclaim, to worship. When you speak words of love, of encouragement, of belief, you're not just helping others. You're healing yourself. You're lifting the frequency of your spirit. You're creating room for heaven to dwell within your words. And that's what makes the difference between living in cycles and walking in breakthrough. Because when your words change, your reality changes. Oh, God didn't give you a voice just to echo what you see. He gave you a voice to speak what he says, even when what you see contradicts it. That's faith. That's power. That's spiritual authority. There will be moments when you don't feel like speaking life, when despair is louder, when fear wants to have the last word. But that is when you speak anyway. That is when you open your mouth and say, God is faithful. He is for me. I will not be shaken. You speak it until your soul catches up. You speak it until the atmosphere aligns. You speak it until the chains fall. There is divine power in your words, not because you are perfect, but because the one who breathed life into you has placed that power within your tongue. Use it wisely. Speak as if heaven is listening, because it is. Speak as if every word is a brick being laid in your future, because it is. and speak as if the very power of God is waiting on your tongue, because it is. You don't need a stage to make an impact. You don't need a microphone to create change. You just need your voice, your heart, and your faith. Say what is true. Say what is holy. Say what is right. And above all, say what brings light, because heaven is waiting to respond to your voice. And when you speak with faith, when you declare the truth with conviction, the universe bends to listen, creation aligns, chains break, and the miraculous begin. There comes a time in every person's life when striving no longer works. You've prayed, pleaded, pushed, and pulled, but nothing changes. Doors remain shut. Healing feels delayed. Breakthrough seems distant. You reach the edge of your strength, and all you have left is silence. In that sacred stillness, a voice within whispers, not louder effort, not more control, but one simple call: surrender. And this is where many wrestle, because surrender feels like losing. It feels like giving up. But in the divine order of things, surrender is not weakness. It is alignment. It is the moment heaven takes the lead. When you release your grip, God takes hold. When you stop insisting on your way, you make room for His way. And oh, how different that way is. How beautiful, how perfect, how beyond what you could ask or imagine. Heaven does not respond to pride. It does not react to panic. It does not move in the noise of striving. It moves in surrender. True, heartfelt, trusting surrender. When your soul says, not my will but yours, a shift happens in the invisible realm. It may not be immediate to the eye, but in the spirit, heaven is already at work. So many spend their lives praying for God to move, to intervene, to fix what's broken, yet they never let go of control. They say the words, but their hearts are still holding the steering wheel. True surrender is deeper than words. It is trust in action. It's saying, even if I don't understand, I still trust you. It's the tearful, trembling prayer in the middle of the night. I give this to you completely. And that's when God moves. Not when you figure it all out, not when you gather more strength, but when you finally fall into His arms and say, I can't, but you can. That is the sacred moment heaven rushes in, not with noise, but with peace. Not with drama, but with divine orchestration. Things begin to shift that you didn't even pray for. Doors open that you didn't even knock on. Healing begins to flow where you once only saw brokenness. Because surrender isn't just letting go. It's handing it over to someone greater. It's saying, I trust you more than I trust myself. And heaven honors that trust. It is a language that the spirit world recognizes. Surrender isn't the end of your strength. It's the beginning of God's strength through you. Some of the most powerful miracles are born not in the height of activity, but in the quiet of surrender. The woman with the issue of blood didn't make demands. She simply reached. The thief on the cross didn't give a sermon. He simply said, remember me. Surrender is often quiet, but always heard. It may feel like a whisper from your lips, but it roars through heaven like a trumpet of faith. There is a beauty in surrender that cannot be described, only experienced. It is the deep breath after years of holding it in. It is the calm after the storm of worry. It is the lifting of the burden you thought you had to carry alone. It is the moment you realize that God never asked you to do it all. He only asked you to trust Him fully. Heaven is not looking for perfection. It's waiting for honesty. It's drawn to humility. When you admit you've come to the end of yourself, that's not defeat. It's invitation. An invitation for the divine to do what you cannot. And heaven responds not just with sympathy, but with power. Surrender opens the door for supernatural intervention. You see, God is not moved by your performance. He's moved by your posture. And the most powerful posture in the kingdom is not standing tall. It is bowing low. It is the heart laid bare, the soul that says, I let go of the outcome. I release the timeline. I trust in your plan. There is peace and surrender that striving can never give you. Because when you surrender, you are no longer trying to control what is out of your hands. You place it into the hands of the one who holds the universe. And those hands, they are gentle, they are strong. They know exactly what to do and when to do it. So whatever burden you've been carrying, whatever pain you've been hiding, whatever future you've been trying to figure out, lay it down, lay it all down. Speak from your heart, I surrender. I don't need to know how. I don't need to have all the answers. I just trust you, Lord. Say it again and again until the tears flow and the pressure lifts. Surrender is not just the beginning of healing. It's the pathway to it. It is not the end of your journey. It's the opening of a new one where you are no longer alone, one where the burden is shared and the direction is guided, one where heaven is not just observing, but actively working on your behalf. Heaven is waiting. Not for your perfection, not for your plan, but for your surrender, because the moment you truly let go, that's the moment the divine steps in. Not late, not indifferent, but right on time, with more grace, more mercy, and more love than you ever imagined. And so today, let your soul speak the words heaven is waiting for. I surrender. Say them with trembling faith. Say them with quiet courage. Say them until peace returns. Say them until you feel God's presence surrounding you, because heaven is not far away. It's closer than your breath, and it's waiting to respond to your surrender. In a world obsessed with performance, with eloquence, with saying all the right things at the right time, it's easy to believe that God responds to polished speeches and poetic prayers. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that if you don't say it perfectly, heaven won't hear you. But nothing could be further from the truth. The presence of God is not moved by grandeur. It is drawn to sincerity. Heaven doesn't respond to the volume of your words, but to the truth in your voice. There is power in simplicity, power in the broken whisper that says, help me, power in the quiet confession, I'm tired. Power in the tear-stained prayer, I trust you even now. These are not grand words. They are not memorized or recited. They rise from a heart that is real and raw and open, and that kind of honesty shakes the heavens. When a child cries out to a parent, the parent doesn't wait for eloquence. They don't wait for the right vocabulary. They move at the sound of the cry. The same is true with God. He is not evaluating your grammar. He is listening for your spirit. He is looking at your heart. He responds not to perfection, but to purity, not to pride, but to humility. Some of the most powerful encounters in Scripture came from simple statements. Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. Have mercy on me, a sinner. If I can just touch the hem of his garment, not my will, but yours be done. These are the words that moved mountains. They were not crafted speeches. They were cries of the heart. And heaven listened. Do we have to impress God? He already knows you. He knows your thoughts before you think them, your fears before you speak them, your wounds before you show them. And still, he wants to hear from you. Not the version of you that you think he wants, not the polished, filtered version, but the real you, the scared you, the hurting you, the confused you. The one with questions and doubts and trembling faith. That's the you he waits for. That's the you he responds to. Too many people stay silent because they think they're not holy enough, not spiritual enough, not worthy enough. But the truth is, the moment you open your mouth and speak from your soul, heaven begins to shift. Not because your words are powerful, but because your surrender is. Because your honesty is holy, because your authenticity creates a channel for the divine to flow through. There's no need to pretend, no need to rehearse, no need to put on a mask in prayer. Come as you are. Come with the mess. Come with the questions. Come with the pain. God is not shocked by your brokenness. He's not moved away from it. He is drawn toward it. It's the broken and contrite heart that attracts him most. It's the voice of the weary, the prayer of the desperate, the whisper of the crushed soul that reaches his throne the fastest. The enemy wants you to believe you have to earn God's attention, that you must pray a certain way, say certain words, behave a certain way to be heard. But God's love is not conditional. His nearness is not reserved for the polished. It is for the genuine, the honest, the undone. If you knew how deeply he longs to hear your real voice, not your religious voice, not your rehearsed voice, you would speak more freely. You would stop performing and start pouring your heart out. Think of the thief on the cross. He had nothing left. No time, no track record, no reputation to clean up. Just a few words. Remember me. And those words, though small, opened the gates of paradise. Not because they were theologically perfect, but because they were sincere. Because they came from a place of surrender, of recognition, of faith. The words that unlock heaven are not lofty. They are authentic. They rise from the deep places of the soul. They sound like, I need you. I can't do this alone. I don't understand, but I trust you. I'm scared, but I know you're with me. These are the keys that open spiritual doors. These are the sounds that echo in eternity, because when you speak from your heart, God listens with his own. So stop trying to be perfect. Stop holding back your tears. Stop editing your prayers. Say what's truly in your spirit, even if it's messy, even if it's broken, even if it's just a whisper. God hears it all. He hears what you cannot even articulate. He interprets the groanings of your heart. He translates your sighs into prayers. He receives your silence as a sacred offering. You don't need many words. You need true words. Words that come from within, not from performance. Words that are soaked in trust, even if they're surrounded by fear. That is what heaven honors. That is what heaven moves for. The cry of the soul that says, here I am, Lord, just as I am. And when you dare to speak that way, something shifts, not just in the spiritual realm, but within you. Your burdens begin to lift. Your spirit begins to breathe. Your faith begins to rise. Because the moment you stop pretending, you begin to connect. The moment you stop performing, you begin to receive. God is not waiting for you to impress him. He's waiting for you to invite him, just as you are. So speak. Whisper if you must. Cry if you can't speak. Let the words come unfiltered. Heaven is listening, not for perfection, but for truth. Because the words that unlock God's power are not grand. They are genuine, and they are already within you. One of the most destructive beliefs that keeps people from experiencing a genuine relationship with God is the idea that they must be perfect before they come to him. They think they need to clean themselves up, fix all their flaws, remove every stain of guilt, and become someone more presentable before stepping into his presence. But the truth, the life-giving, soul-freeing truth, is that God never asked for perfection. He asked for willingness. The heart of God is not moved by polished appearances or spotless records. It is moved by the cry of a sincere soul. The one who says, I may not have it all together, but I'm here. God never demanded that you be flawless. He simply waits for you to open the door, to be willing to come to him even in your brokenness. This belief that we must be perfect before we are accepted is not only false, it's deadly to the spirit. It paralyzes people in shame. It convinces them that they are too far gone, too sinful, too dirty, too late. For the very essence of grace is that it meets you exactly where you are, not where you think you should be, Not where others expect you to be, but right here, right now, in the middle of your mess. Think of the people God used throughout history. They were never perfect. David was a shepherd boy with insecurities and failures. Moses had a speech problem and a temper. Peter denied Christ 3 times. Paul persecuted the early church. And yet, these imperfect people changed the world, not because they were perfect, but because they were willing. Willing to be used, willing to believe, willing to surrender, willing to take the first step, even if they stumbled. God is not waiting for your perfection. He is waiting for your yes. That quiet, trembling yes that says, use me anyway. That soft, almost uncertain yes that whispers, here I am, Lord. That hesitant, fearful yes that still dares to believe maybe you can do something with me. That is the yes that God honors. That is the yes that releases his power. Heaven does not look for credentials, it looks for faith. And faith lives inside willing hearts. So many people delay their calling, delay their healing, delay their breakthrough because they're waiting to be someone they're not yet. But God doesn't need your perfection to do something extraordinary. He just needs permission. He needs you to stop hiding behind your fear of failure and start leaning into the possibility of grace. Because grace covers what you can't fix. Grace empowers what you can't complete. Grace stands where your strength fails. Don't you see God loves the unpolished? He is drawn to the humble, the surrendered, the vulnerable. He works best in those who admit they don't have it all together. It's not the strong who change the world. It's the surrendered, the ones who say, I don't have much, but I give you what I have. The ones who come to him with shaking hands and trembling hearts, but come anyway. That is the kind of heart God uses. That is the kind of spirit he inhabits. You may be thinking, but I've failed too many times. Let me tell you, God is not intimidated by your failures. He's not surprised by your past. He knew everything about you before you ever took your first breath. And he still chose to love you, still chose to pursue you, still chose to call your name. If that doesn't prove his desire for your heart, nothing will. You don't need to become someone else to be loved by God. You don't need to fix everything before you are worthy. His love is not earned. It is freely given. All he asks is that you be willing. Willing to trust, to obey, to follow, to believe that his strength is enough for your weakness. Willing to say, even if I don't feel ready, I will take the first step. The enemy will always whisper that you are not enough, that your past disqualifies you, that your struggles are too messy. But the voice of God will always say, come as you are, not when you're polished, but when you're real. Not when you've figured everything out, but when you've finally given up pretending. Because the moment you show up with your willing heart, you will find that God is already there, ready to restore, to heal, to transform, to make all things new. You don't need to know the whole path, you just need to take the first step. You don't need to have the perfect words, just offer your heart. You don't need to understand everything, just trust that he does. Willingness opens the door to the supernatural. It unlocks the flow of grace. It invites the Holy Spirit to do what only he can do. So if you're tired of trying to be perfect, tired of carrying the weight of your past, tired of waiting for a better version of yourself to show up, stop. Just stop. Right now in this moment, say yes. Yes to grace. Yes to love. Yes to purpose. Yes to healing. Yes to the God who's been waiting, not for your perfection, but for your heart. Because the truth is, God does not wait for perfect people. He waits for willing ones. And when he finds a heart that says, I am yours, he will move heaven and earth to write a new story through you. A story not built on perfection, but on the power of surrender. There is a profound power in the words we speak. It is easy to dismiss them as mere sounds, fleeting and insignificant, but the reality is far different. Words are not just expressions of thought. They are instruments of creation. The things we say, whether they are spoken in anger, fear, joy, or faith, have the capacity to reshape our reality, not only the world around us, but also the very foundation of who we are. When we speak, we are not only altering our circumstances, we are also transforming the inner world that shapes our actions, decisions, and ultimately our lives. It is easy to underestimate the impact of what we say. We often speak out of habit, responding without thinking, letting our words flow freely from a place of emotion rather than intentionality. But every word carries energy. Every sentence carries weight. The words we speak can either affirm our worth or diminish it. They can elevate our thoughts or entrench us in negativity. Words have the power to speak life into dead things or to destroy what could otherwise flourish. We must understand that when we speak, we are creating, not just communicating. We are either building up or tearing down, shaping our destiny or weakening our resolve. In the beginning, God spoke the world into existence. Let there be light, he said, and light appeared. He didn't act first, he spoke. And in the same way, we are created in his image with the ability to speak things into being. Our words are not merely an expression of our current reality. They are a manifestation of our faith, of what we believe is possible. The things we speak regularly are the seeds we plant in our heart. These seeds grow and bear fruit, for better or for worse, in our lives. If we speak words of despair, we plant despair in our hearts. If we speak words of fear, we plant fear. If we speak words of failure, we sow failure into the very soil of our lives. But on the flip side, when we speak words of hope, of strength, of faith, we are planting seeds of potential, growth, and victory. It's not just that our circumstances change when we speak words of life. It is that we change. Our minds are shifted, our spirits are uplifted, our perspective expands. And as our inner world shifts, so does the world around us. The power of our words cannot be overstated, because they are the initial point of change, not only in our environment, but also in the depth of our being. When we speak words of encouragement over ourselves, we create the space for courage to rise up. We create the foundation for belief to take root. But when we consistently speak negatively, we plant seeds of self-doubt, insecurity, and helplessness. Words have a direct impact on how we perceive ourselves, how we see the world, and how we engage with the challenges life presents to us. It is as if our words are the lens through which we view everything, shaping the color and clarity of our vision. It's essential to realize that we are the product of what we continually speak over ourselves and others. If we say, "I can't do this," we reinforce the belief that we are incapable. If we say, "I am not enough," we plant the idea in our hearts that we are unworthy. If we say, "I will never succeed," we establish the belief that failure is our destiny. But if we change our words, we change our trajectory. If we say, "I am capable," we open ourselves to growth. If we say, "I am worthy," we invite healing and restoration. If we say, "I will succeed," we move ourselves closer to victory. Our words are also prophetic in nature. We don't always recognize it, but the things we speak often become self-fulfilling prophecies. The more we declare something, the more likely it becomes a reality. When we speak words of defeat, we surrender to the very things we fear. But when we declare words of life, we give room for those words to take root in our hearts and manifest in our actions. Our speech has the power to align us with the future we desire or the one we fear. But the power of words doesn't end with self-talk. The way we speak to others and about others also plays a crucial role in shaping the world around us. When we speak words of kindness, we plant seeds of peace. When we speak words of love, we cultivate understanding. When we speak words of encouragement, we foster hope. But when we speak words of criticism, we tear down. When we speak words of judgment, we sow discord. The energy we put out into the world through our words comes back to us. What we sow, we reap. Our words, like boomerangs, always return. Think about the times when someone's words lifted you up. Maybe they spoke life into your weary heart when you thought you couldn't go on. Maybe their encouragement gave you the courage to keep moving forward. Those words had power, didn't they? They had the ability to change your entire day, to shift your perspective, to inspire you to take action. You have that same power. Your words can be a source of strength for someone else, just as the words of others have been a source of strength for you. The process of changing your circumstances begins within you, and it begins with your words. When you begin to speak words of affirmation, faith, and hope, you begin to see the world differently. You begin to step into your potential, to believe in what's possible, and to call forth the strength within you that you didn't even know existed. You change, and when you change, the world around you begins to shift as well. It's not magic, it's not wishful thinking, it's the divine power that resides within each of us, the ability to create with our words. So, choose your words carefully. Speak life, speak hope, speak truth, because the words you speak today are shaping the person you will become tomorrow. They are the first step in the transformation you seek. Your words don't just change your circumstances, they change you. In life, we often find ourselves standing at a crossroads, overwhelmed by the choices before us, unsure of which direction to take, hesitant to make decisions because of fear, doubt, or insecurity. At these moments, it can seem as though the universe is waiting for us to be perfect, to have everything figured out, to be equipped with all the right answers. But the truth is, God doesn't ask for perfection. He doesn't demand that we come with all the qualifications, the right plans, or even the ideal circumstances. What He's waiting for is something much simpler, something far more profound than we often realize. He's waiting for us to say, I am willing. The phrase I am willing is more than just a statement. It is an invitation. It is an opening of the heart, a surrendering of the self to the divine plan, a willingness to step into the unknown with a trust that God will guide us. When we say those words, we align ourselves with God's will, and in that alignment, we position ourselves to receive His guidance, His power, and His blessing. We may not know where the path will lead, we may not have all the answers, but we are ready to walk it anyway. Too often we are caught up in the belief that we must know everything before we can move forward. We feel that we must have it all together, our finances, our relationships, our health, our careers, before we can take the next step. This need for perfection paralyzes us. We wait for the perfect moment, the perfect conditions, and in doing so, we miss the opportunity to act. But God doesn't need us to be perfect. He just needs us to be willing. The power of I am willing lies in its simplicity. When we make that declaration, we are essentially saying to God, I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know where this journey will take me. I don't know if I have what it takes, but I trust you. I am willing to let go of my fear, my doubt, my need for control. I am willing to follow where you lead. And when we make this declaration with sincerity, with faith, we open the door for divine intervention. The willingness to say yes is the very first step to transformation. Think about it. Every person who has ever achieved something remarkable in life, whether spiritually, professionally, or personally, started with one simple choice: willingness. They didn't have all the answers. They didn't know how everything would unfold. They just chose to be willing to take that first step. Maybe they didn't have the confidence at the time, but they knew that their willingness would be enough for God to work with. What is stopping you from saying, I am willing? It's easy to let fear hold us back. We might be afraid of failing. We might fear rejection or judgment. We might feel unworthy or unqualified. These thoughts are natural. But the beauty of saying I am willing is that it is not about being perfect. It's about trusting that God will provide. You don't have to have everything in place. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just need to show up, and the rest will fall into place. When you say I am willing, you are declaring your trust in the process. You are trusting that the challenges you face are not obstacles but stepping stones, guiding you toward your purpose. You are choosing to move beyond the comfort zone, beyond the limits you've placed on yourself, and into the realm where faith and possibility intersect. Saying I am willing means you are ready to embrace uncertainty, to step into new opportunities, to face challenges head on, and to grow in ways you never imagined. God is waiting for you to say those words because He wants to show you the incredible things He has prepared for you. He wants to reveal the dreams He's placed in your heart, the plans He's had for you long before you even knew them, but He can't reveal them to you until you are willing to take the first step, to trust that He will guide you along the way. His plans are always bigger than what you can imagine, but those plans require your cooperation. He needs you to say, I am willing, before He can take you into the fullness of what He has for you. By saying, I am willing, you allow God to fill you with strength and courage. You release the need to control the outcome and surrender to the power of faith. The process might not always be easy. There may be moments of uncertainty, moments when the road seems unclear, but remember, that willingness is what keeps you moving forward. It is the key that unlocks the doors to new opportunities, new experiences, and new revelations. When you say, I am willing, you are not just committing to a task or a goal. You are committing to a life of growth, a life of surrender, a life of transformation. You are committing to the journey, knowing that it will take you to places you never dreamed possible, that it will challenge you in ways you didn't think you could handle, and that it will build you into the person you were always meant to be. You are saying, I am willing to let go of my limitations and step into the greatness You have designed for me. The beauty of God's call is that it is open to everyone. He is waiting for those who are willing. He is waiting for you to say, I am willing, and when you do, He will move mountains on your behalf. So what are you waiting for? Are you ready to step into the life He has prepared for you? Are you ready to let go of fear, doubt, and hesitation? All it takes is a single, powerful declaration, I am willing. And in that willingness, you will find everything you need to fulfill the incredible purpose He has placed on your life. So right now, right where you are, stop fighting. Let go. Whisper the words He's been longing to hear. You don't need a stage. You don't need a perfect past. You only need a willing heart and surrendered lips. God, I give You everything. I surrender. That's it. That's the doorway to restoration, peace, and purpose. He's been waiting for you to say those words. And now, heaven is listening.